see them as opportunities for tax dodging, smuggling and assault on workers' rights. We're going to explore both sides of that. You can probably guess which side I'm on. So, how many of you here have heard about, do you have an idea of what a Freeport is? You might have an idea of the traditional Freeport, which is like a warehouse or some sort of factory or industrial estate behind a fence, near a port, near a harbour, beyond the security points of an airport, that kind of thing. The purpose of a Freeport is that you can import components, say car parts, engine parts, and build them into a finished good with added value, the finished car, and then export it again without having to pay import and export duties. The idea being if you had to, say, for example, pay 20% import duties on the car components coming into a car, then paying 10% to export, then that pushes up the price of the kind of car. However, you don't want these cheap goods maybe leaking into your domestic economy and undercutting your domestic car manufacturing. So the idea is, you have this little zone where all this cheap import and export can happen, but if those cars come into your domestic economy, then you have to pay the full taxes. So you've insulated your economy from the import and export. However, what we see in the modern world is that actually these import and export taxes are not a big factor in price anymore. A lot of these import taxes have come down, a lot of markets have harmonised, especially within the EU, where you have the single market, and this was essentially why, even while the UK was an EU member, when it did used to have free ports, they were kind of a bit useless, because we just traded normally with the single market anyway. What I'll say is what Freeport is not, because there are some stories flying about these. You might have heard the story about charter cities. This is not what these Freeports are. The charter cities actually comes from the alt-right internet forums. It's a bit of a conspiracy theory. It comes from pretty much the same groups as the ones that tell you that the 15-minute city is some sort of penal colony. The idea of a charter city is where you actually give a company full sovereignty and extraterritoriality over a chunk of territory where they can make their own laws. That's somewhat different from a company lobbying very hard on the government to get regulatory and tax benefits and usually getting them because the government capitulates to them. Not the same. They're also not a post-Brexit unburdening of regulations. As I said, Freeports were illegal in the EU, and the UK had some, and it just became a bit pointless. Now in Scotland, 5 sites were considered for the UK's Freeport scheme, with one in Clyde, Forth, Aberdeen, Cromarty and Orkney. Of those, 2 were selected, Orkney and here, in Forth. It's quite interesting that both the Clyde and the Aberdeen groups disputed the final decision. The Clyde group, covering Glasgow and out to the west coast and parts of South Lanarkshire, they disputed the decision on the grounds that having two ports on the east coast was less beneficial than having one on the west coast and one on the east coast. They probably had a point in that, although I would still dispute the idea of doing this behind 3 ports. If anyone wants to ask me about the Ocean Span project, please do so in the Q&A, and I'll tell you about a really interesting idea from about 50 years ago that might have been a better way to go about that. Aberdeen was also unhappy because, well, it's Aberdeen, they have oil money. Last thing oil money wants is taxes. I'm not entirely sure what's happened to the dispute side of that decision, but it doesn't look as if the decision is going to change in any way. Since then, both Glasgow and Aberdeen have been given the silver medals or special investment zones, which are kind of like free ports without the ports. Now, where's the UK different from the traditional Freeport model? Is these are very decentralised areas. This isn't just a warehouse sitting at the airside behind an airport or down by the harbour. These are massive. Okay, sorry about that. These are massive bubbles, about 45 kilometres across. The one in Forth covers a population of around 1 million people. It extends pretty much to the coast, at Queensferry and Leith, all the way out to Grangemouth. In fact, the Cromarty one's an even better example, which I could show you on that. You couldn't get the projector on the slides. If you search my name on YouTube, search Freeport, so there's a YouTube version of this talk where you can see all the slides and the maps on it. Because there's a little addition to the regulations around these freeports that says if the bubble that you've drawn around the centre point of your freeport hits the sea, you can subtract off that area and add it on as an extra chunk of land. So the Cromarty bubble isn't a spherical bubble, it hugs the coast. The northern edge of the bubble is about an hour's drive away from the centre. Here, as I say, we have that bubble going from Leith and Queensferry to Grangemouth, about 1 million people living within it. There's 5 registered customs sites at the moment. Grangemouth, Rosyth, Burnt Island, Edinburgh Airport and Leith. So the text in this room is very small. And 3 of them are also registered tax sites. So these are the places where we now have tax and customs borders within Scotland. There may be more coming. Any company within this bubble can potentially register for Freeport status. This will be an ongoing thing. We don't yet know what the length of that will be. So how does it work? Does it mean that anyone within the 4th bubble who's paying tax is not paying tax anymore? Unfortunately not. The tax breaks only apply to companies within the Freeports, and only certain taxes. I'm sure we'll get some more details from this from the other speakers. The Freeport sites can be located anywhere within that bubble. It's a very distributed system, which means if you're moving goods between customs sites, then you've got to treat those goods as if they're travelling between customs zones. It's almost like all that trouble, all those complications around the Northern Irish border. We don't even get the benefits of being in a single market for doing it. So what tax breaks will you get? None. Essentially. All of the proposed tax breaks are aimed at companies, not workers. So the UK controlled taxes are things like corporation tax, or breaks, or discounts on employers, not employees, national insurance. The Scottish Government devolved taxes that will be involved in these freeports include land and buildings transaction tax, and stamp duty, and local authority business rates, non-domestic rates. So what will workers get? As we say, they're not getting tax benefits, are we getting extra workers' rights? Well, we heard that the Scottish Government had negotiated extra perks as part of this. This is why we're happy to have them over and above the freeports that England was getting. But the concessions that the Scottish Government won were marginal. Companies applying for Freeport status within these bubbles, I'll quote, may include elements that align with the Scottish Government's Fair Work First criteria, for example, commitments on the real living wage and trade union engagement. May. So you might get paid minimum wage. And what will the economy get? Almost nothing. I seriously could suggest going onto YouTube and searching out Richard Murphy. He's got a really good series on freeports, particularly a video called Why Freeports Are a Terrible Idea, in which he outlines that they do not create economic growth. At best, they move the growth around. They move growth from outside the freeport into the freeport. And almost everywhere the freeports have been used, they have been associated with crime, with smuggling, or just with hiding wealth. The other traditional idea of a freeport is a warehouse that suddenly becomes very full of very valuable art. And especially with this model of freeport, where you do have goods travelling overland between tax and customs sites, the risk of leakage into the domestic economy becomes very high. One of the other benefits that's been touted, including by the Scottish Government, who were just over in Denmark a few weeks ago, trying to negotiate Danish energy companies coming over to Scotland to build things in our freeports, is that they will benefit our renewable transition, specifically citing things like the ScotWind project. trip over to Scotland to check out the work on that, but in this area, think about it for a second. The purpose of a Freeport is that you bring components into the country, build them into a thing, and then export it again. And if you keep the thing in your domestic economy, you have to pay the tax. That's the way it works. So if you're bringing wind turbine components into Scotland, turning them into wind turbines, and then building them into a Scottish wind farm, how does the Freeport benefit this? There's only two ways I can see it working. One, you have a massive mega factory producing thousands of wind turbines, many of which are for export, and you're exporting them cheaply using the tax breaks, and you use the economy of scale of that to cross-subsidise your domestic wind turbines. But we're not talking about turbine factories on anything like that scale. The only other way I can see those Freeports benefiting Scotland is if they're paying their tax. They're not getting the tax benefit from the Freeport, but they are getting the benefit from reduced workers' rights and reduced workers' wages. So the only way I can see the Freeports helping Scotland is if they're overall hurting Scotland. Can you hear me with this one then? So why is the Scottish Government supporting these? Well, there's a few possible options. One is that I think there's a genuine fear of capital flight. I think there's a genuine fear that if Scotland didn't agree to the UK Freeport plan, then the UK would build a massive Freeport in Newcastle or Carlisle and start competing with the Scottish economy. However, I also believe there's a genuine element of true believer within the Scottish Government. I think they honestly believe that the market will provide and they will get the growth and the jobs that these things are touted for. And the current Scottish Government is all in on the concept of foreign direct investment, inwards investment as a driver of economic growth. Commonwealth soon going to be publishing a paper showing just how much profit extraction has happened from Scotland as a result of that inwards investment. So keep an eye out on that when it comes out.
GPS signal lost.
And it's not a case that the Scottish Government is just passively allowing the UK to do these things on our soil and we can't resist it, because, as I say, they're supporting them with devolved tax cuts. There was a consultation last month on the LBTT tax cut run by the Scottish Government. It was honestly one of the worst consultations I've ever engaged with. It did not ask the question, do you think these tax cuts are okay? Do you approve of these tax cuts? What it did was it gave you a line of legislation. You know, we will offer these tax cuts in sort of legalese language. And then ask the question, do you think this legislation will give effect to the proposed tax cut? I am not the Scottish Government's legal clerk. I am not checking their spelling for them. Now, I'm a massive geek, so I was saying things like, yes, this tax cut, this legislation will cause this tax cut, here's why it's a bad thing to do. And I think that's the only reason the Commonwealth's response to this consultation was included in the final report. Because there was a response from the STUC and a response from Unite that was excluded from the final report. And I haven't seen the Unite response, but I have seen the STUC response, and they were just answering the question with, we think these tax cuts are a bad idea, we think these workers' rights cuts are a bad idea. They weren't strictly asking the question asked. So they were excluded for not answering the question. Interestingly, the consortium behind the fourth Freeport also put in a submission that was included and mentioned in the final report. However, their response was excluded from the database of submissions. We can't read it. I suspect they didn't give us permission to read it. I should probably FOI now. The other major tax cut that's proposed is on local authority business rates. Nothing is really known about this at the moment. I'm hoping maybe Greg can give us a bit more insight into this. But the last I checked there was a reference in March from the Scottish Government saying that they were going to run a consultation on whether or not local authorities should be allowed to offer business rates cuts to Freeports. but I have not seen that consultation, nor yet any mention of it since March. So I'll let folk know when I do, unless we get some more from them. Where's Commonwealth's view on this? Ultimately, we need to be thinking about our trade powers, not just as a means of giving companies tax cuts. We need to be starting to look at it as a force for good and soft power in the world. We have a plan within our Green New Deal plan that involves giving beneficial trade deals to countries that are at least keeping up with Scotland on our Green New Deal progression. And that involves things like externality taxes that account for the pollution that goods create wherever they are created and then wherever they're imported. Interestingly, the European Union this month is launching the world's first carbon border tax. So if you are producing goods that use a lot of electricity and that electricity is produced entirely by renewable energy, then you will not have to pay the tax for the carbon emitted from that energy. However, if you're trying to produce the goods using coal power plants, then you will have to pay the tax to sell into the EU. This was a policy that we suggested in 2019 in our Green New Deal, and we thought we're not going to get away with this one. This one's far too radical. No one's going to not push back on this. Not only did people not push back, the EU is doing it. And when the idea was given to the Scottish Climate Assembly in 2021, they demanded the plan with a vote of 95%. Come on, people. You get 100 people in a room in Scotland and ask them, oh, it's cute that you won't get a 95% approval rate. So, thanks for that. That's a fair overview, brief overview of everything's going on with the Freeport, so I know it. We have a Commonweal plan for what an independent Scotland could look like, a 10-year development plan, and it does involve things like responsible trade and manufacturing and economic development. It's called Sorted, a handbook for Scotland. I have a few copies with me if you want to buy one at the end. Other than that, just to say Commonweal is entirely dependent on our donors and supporters to keep us going. So if you do want to support our policies, our campaigns, and allow me to come to events like this and tell you what's going on, then please go onto our website and sign up as a donor. We don't get the government money, we don't get the donations from the Freeport consortiums. We don't even have our personal website, so please keep us going. So I'll leave it at that. I'll pass over to Graham, and I'm looking forward to your questions a bit later. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much, sir. Very good, very interesting. I don't profess a very technical knowledge of Freeport or whatever, but what I was proposing to do today was maybe just go through what we did in the rest. That's our first meeting about Freeports, and we didn't exactly know what we were doing about it, but we had a meeting on the 26th of August. Very well attended. A lot of business people came along to it and asked some very pertinent questions. So we've taken these questions away and we're looking at them in more depth, and hopefully we'll get some sort of reply to them. But I was just looking at the notes of the meeting, and I think we had a sort of debrief after the meeting, which was regarded as being very successful. The main outcome was that the consensus of opinion was that virtually nobody, even within the business community in the West Islands, knew anything or very little about a Freeport right at the doorstep. I mean, it's ridiculous. Crazy stuff. Absolutely zero consultation. In fact, I had quite careful conversations, informal conversations with some of the business community, and they were absolutely appalled by what was proposed. Again, right at the doorstep, without any involvement. So, we've learned a lot from that first meeting. This is the second such meeting, and hopefully we'll have another 3 meetings. And as we progress in meetings, hopefully our knowledge will expand, because it is as transparent as mud what has been going on. That is the problem. The politicians are hiding behind their political thing. I mean, Kate Forbes, for example, we tried to get her to come to the meeting in Inverness. She declined and said that she was otherwise engaged. Again, we invited all the politicians from this area, including the constituencies right here, MPs, MSPs, local councillors. Where are they? Why aren't they here? So, anyway, this is just to give you a little whiff, if you like, what's on the agenda. This is a direct extract from the Highland Council document, which is published on their website. By the way, it's so deep in the website that you can hardly find it. Anyway, we found it, and it was a lengthy document, and tucked away right at the very end of the document was this little beauty. An appendix showing a package of incentives. Right, as Craig's already said, up at the top of the appendix, they go on to say tax sites. Now, you've got to realise there's a difference between a tax site and a customs site in terms of how the tax situation is treated. I don't want to go into technical details just now because it gets a wee bit complicated. However, right, these are what are proposed for the Inverness and property sites. Right, land transactions with the tax sites benefit land and building transactions tax relief. Next bullet point, 10% rate of structures and buildings allowance on construction or renovation every year for 10 years. 100% enhanced capital allowances for the first year invested in new plant machinery. Employers pay zero national insurance contributions on salaries up to $25,000 for new employees in the first 3 years. 100% non-domestic rate relief for 5 years, which means for 5 years the Highland Council are shooting themselves in the foot and not getting any business rates out of the sites. Crazy. Right, the custom sites, again, they're more like, I mean, for example, the port at Niggan Croft is one of the deep water ports in the east of Scotland. It's in fact one of the deepest deep water ports in Scotland. So they have a considerable interest in the customs sites because their principal role is going to be creating, building the wind turbines, importing the parts, assembling them in the yard, and then re-exporting them wherever. So, import duties suspended, duty inversion for goods entering customs zones, which means if you've already paid duties on the goods coming into the zone, the duties are inverted and you get the money back. It's repaid because it's not subject to tax coming into the port. Right, customs duty exemption on import goods processed in green Freeport and re-exported subject to free trade agreements. Import VAT on goods entering the Freeport is completely suspended. Simplified, whatever that means, import and export procedures. Okay? So, right, this is the one that really gets me. Innovation. New sandboxes. Presumably you know what a sandbox is. It's a method by which businesses can develop usually innovative things and they develop things through the sandbox. But they go on to say that the sandboxes will relax specific regulations to test innovative propositions, whatever the hell that means. It sounds like you go for a free-for-all and just relax the whole thing, so you can do what you like as long as you're within that Freeport zone. Now, I'll go on to explain this in a bit more depth. A Green Freeport Collaboration Hub gives a platform to create regional innovation hubs. Now, it's a pity I didn't have slides here I could have shown you so you could see it for yourself, but within Inverness, you've got two separate Freeport areas. You've got Inverness Harbour itself, part of the industrial estate in Inverness, the Inverness and Highlands University campus in its entirety for research and development. Out at Cromarty and Nick, you've got the whole area in Nick up to Invergordon, and including Invergordon industrial estate, all part of the Freeport. So that at the moment has been delineated by the Highland Council and whoever is behind the board of the Freeport property. Just as Craig was saying, This is where it kind of differs. Within the already delineated area, which is some of it's already been fenced off by the, for example, Inverness Harbour, and shut to the public. So beyond that, the area which is described as the red zone is 75 kilometres wide and extends up to Brora in the north, out to Bewley in the west, out to Nairn in the east, and beyond Inverness, and including Inverness City, to beyond south of Inverness. So within that area, this is going back to the Green Freeport Collaboration Hub. If you want to build your business outside the particular area that Freeport's in, you can do so within that red zone. You might want to clarify that, Craig, if I'm getting the right end of this thing here. Yeah, good. So, there you have it, black and white subject to no redaction, straight out of the horse's mouth from Highland Council. So, there you go. Then, as I said, with the tax head on, we're serious. I mean, we're talking about 25 years these Freeports have been allocated without any say-so from the locals, without any input from the locals. There's been zero democratic input. In fact, we received notification at Highland Council. We're supposedly having a meeting with Freeport on the 9th of October. That hasn't materialised. It's certainly not open to the public. So, I mean, the whole thing seems to be driven by Westminster and Michael Gove in particular, with levelling up stuff that's coming out of there. And to all intents and purposes, I'm coming at this from a Salvo point of view, by the way. Our territory in Scotland is sovereign to the Scots people. It's not theirs to give away. So, that's where we're coming from with Salvo hosting these meetings. So, the question is, as I said earlier, where are our elected representatives? What have they got to say about this? At the Inverness meeting, we had quite a detailed discussion about this, and without exception, everybody agreed, we need to take it to them. You need to start writing to them, knocking on their doors, being a general nuisance, and asking seriously pertinent questions. Who gave you the authority to do this? It's not yours to do. It's up to us, the people, to decide what we do with our own land. So, as Craig said, this is all part of the Brexit agenda, which we in Scotland didn't even vote for, but it's been foisted on us anyway, against our settled will. So, where do we go next? Any ideas? We can talk about that later, because it's all there on speaking about it here, but what are we going to do about it? There's not much at the moment that we can do, other than make serious progress on our elected reps. But I think we've got some ideas up our sleeve as we plan out the meetings, and we might take things a stage further, which we can't comment on at the moment. So, thank you very much for listening. I hope you have
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Pat Lee. I'm a unison member. I'm not sanctioned by any union to come and speak to you. I'm speaking on behalf of the union movement as being a member. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you to shed light on a concerning issue that is potential. Now, what we're going to say here is we're sort of repeating ourselves, but I've written this week, so I'm just going to do it for you. Concerning an issue that has the potential to undermine the hardcore rights and protections of workers in Scotland. It is the creation of Freeport's area and the negative impact they pose on employment rights. Freeport's touted as catalysts for economic growth are designated zones within a country where goods can be imported, manufactured and re-exported with reduced taxes, regulations and customs control. While they may appear attractive on the surface, we must critically examine the consequences they bring, particularly to the rights and well-being of workers. One of the most significant concerns regarding Freeports is the potential erosion of employment rights, and we could see that with an example, P&O ferries, any of us. They are all within these Freeports. So there are areas often come with relaxed labour laws and reduced workers' protections, which can lead to exploitative working conditions. And you only need to look up the road at Amazon to have a wee look at that. In pursuit of attracting investment and boosting trade, companies operating within the Freeports will prioritise profit over the welfare of their employees by offering tax incentives that have been described just 2 minutes ago, deregulation. Freeports and our government will create a race to the bottom where businesses seek to cut costs by minimising wages, circumventing safety regulations and limiting workers' rights to organise. And our own bloody government is doing that itself. This undermines the progress made in ensuring fair wages, safe working environments and collective bargaining. More importantly, the establishment of Freeports will disrupt the existing industries and local businesses. As companies flock to these zones to take advantage of the economic benefits, traditional industries will suffer, leading to job losses and a decline in employment opportunities for the local communities. You only have to look at the state of community high streets with the introduction of out-of-town retail parks. They are now deserted and unoccupied, and that is without the incentive of lower taxes and less to non-existent regulations. This not only jeopardises workers' livelihoods, but also widens the wealth gap and exacerbates social inequality. Moreover, Freeports will facilitate tax evasion and illicit activities. The reduced oversight and customs controls create an environment susceptible to smuggling, money laundering and other illegal practices. These activities not only undermine the rule of law, but divert resources that could be allocated to essential public services and infrastructure, further impeding the overall well-being of the population. In conclusion, while Freeports may promise economic growth and increased trade, we must not overlook their potential negative impacts on employment rights. Dilution of labour protections and the exploitation of workers and the erosion of established rights are serious concerns that demand our attention. We must strike a balance between economic development and the preservation of workers' rights, ensure that progress does not come at the expense of human dignity and social justice. The introduction of Freeports will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. They will benefit no one but the grifting shysters and bastard billionaires. And they know how to extract as much profit from as little investment as possible. And we, the worker, will pay that price once again. We demand that the government cease and desist from the implementation of Freeports, and we instruct the government, representatives of every party and none, and today I take the opportunity to call on the SPUC and the TUC to mobilise and stop Freeports in their tracks, because they are coming after our ancestors' hard-fought rights, our wages and standard of living. Let's take the fight to them.
Now it's your turn. Who wants to speak first?
Just a quick show of hands in the room. Who's heard of Article 19 of the Article, the Treaty of Union? Anyone heard of Article 19? There's a couple. Right. That article states that Scots law is upheld as it was prior to the Union in perpetuity. Everyone knows what perpetuity means, yeah? Perpetuation and all that kind of things, right? So, we've got a law that our namesake is attached to, salvo jury something, I don't have to help me out with other big long Latin name at the end of it, it's quite unpronounceable, but it says that gives us the right to call out any legislation that then interferes with another right that we have. And that's the one that's the most important one, as far as I'm concerned, the nuclear right. And that's the one that says, it says your freedoms, liberties, and privileges are inalienable. And that means they can't be voted out of existence, they can't be taken away. It's a bit like your factor that deals with your grounds if you have to pay those, right? In your property documents, it says that the committee can't vote that themselves out of existence, so nobody has to pay it. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. We cannot vote that out of existence. So, can we use Article 19 to actually get a cohort of people together, which is one of the communities of our realm, because we're a community of our own realm. So the people that run our community, we can go to them and say, would you agree with us that this is detrimental to our rights, freedoms and all the rest of it, yeah? Once we get a big enough horde of people together, we can take that to our politicians, whether it's the politicians in Westminster or the politicians in the branch office up here. So any thoughts on that, Pardon?
I agree wholeheartedly with you, but we have to mobilise the people, and we have to mobilise our trade unions, and we have to mobilise our representatives in government, council. We have to have them doing their jobs. This is absolutely going to be detrimental, not only to employee rights, but the environment is at risk here. Because if there's a company called Ineos that holds the licences for fracking right now, there's a moratorium, and with the deregulation within Freeport, what's to stop them circumventing the government's moratorium? And if they have the ability to set up outside the zone, then we're talking about going to Glasgow as well. The whole country is open to exploitation for the wealthy, and it will impact on the worker. It will impact on our communities. So we need to mobilise, and we need to get those representatives up off their asses and acting on our behalf.
Just one sort of expansion on that. Actually, the fracking thing isn't so much of an issue with these Freeports as they are, because the Freeports themselves don't impact planning permission, and the Scottish Government still have power over planning permission for fracking, which they won't give. So that's not so much of an issue as they stand. And that's kind of brings into a bit more of a response to you, so that the Scottish Government isn't a passive observer in this. It's not; these aren't things that are just being landed on Scotland from out west. The Scottish Government is a partner in these and is doing and is part of this. If you search out the report for the Land and Building Transaction Tax consultation, you'll see in it where Commonwealth's response to that consultation was perhaps the Scottish Government should consider increasing devolved taxes within Freeports to partially compensate for the tax cuts that the UK Government was giving. So if the UK Government was offering a company £1 million in tax cuts, maybe the Scottish Government wants to increase their taxes by £500,000, for example. They'll give them somewhat of a tax cut, but then the Scottish Government gets some revenue. The Scottish Government directly responded to my point on that, simply saying, no, we're not going to do that. So, yeah, the Scottish Government itself does have significant powers of control within these Freeports. They just need the will to use them in the way that we want them to. And that's where the political movement comes in as well.
Okay, we'll leave the next, then I'll come to you.
Okay. Yeah. I am at the back after all.
Pat, you basically answered some of my questions. I was going to ask about INEOS. But Graham, we sent invitations to lots of media. I was just wondering, since we don't have any political representation here, did we hear anything from any of the press that we contacted? Because again, like in Inverness, there was nobody there either, and we really need the media to be involved in this as well to give us support.
Yeah, I'll reply to that, Nicola. No, we didn't get any response from any media, despite blitzing with invites. So, I would agree with that gentleman there. We need to form groups. I mean, this is why Salvo are promoting these events. Because Salvo is based on the premise of free riding on the rest of the goes with it. So I think we're quite correct. Sorry, I'm being told off here about my mic. Yeah, I think we need. I mean, it's early day here. I mean, this is the second meeting, so I think the primary thing we've got to do now is make people aware. And as soon as people find out the truth of what's actually happening, I think you'll find that people will actually become rather inflamed and want to do something about it. But Pat's absolutely right. We need to get it out to the unions and places like that, and get everybody that we can engaged in it. Because politically, it's going over with the Scottish government, so it's over to us, the people, to do something about it. We are. Sorry.
Bill here. Bill, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. Mike?
Thank you. Last week, Salvo presented the Stirling Directive to Scottish Parliament. Under that directive, related to the climate right, we directed the Scottish Government to follow the Scottish people's wishes. Pat, like to expand on that?
Under Scottish constitutional law, we have the right to direct our government, and they must act on it. And the simple fact is, we have been deferring this to the Scottish Government, to Westminster. We are not using the laws that are in place at this time. We need to inform, educate the population of the rights that we hold right here now. The Stirling Directive was not accepted by the Scottish Government. It was accepted by an undergraduate who was sent out to a car park to receive this. The fact is that we, the Scots people, hold the power. We are not, at this point, asserting and declaring that power. So the campaign has begun to assert and declare and use the laws that we have in place, our inalienable right to instruct and expect the government to act on our behalf for our common good. This whole idea in Freeport goes against that principle in its entirety. It is not going to be of any benefit to the Scottish people and the Scottish nation, so it shouldn't be happening. And if we assert our right and assert our power, we can stop this from happening.
Thank you. Well, the behaviour of the Scottish Government...
Can you hold your mic up for me?
Yeah, sorry. The behaviour of the Scottish Government is formed of pattern, hasn't it? Every subject, every contentious subject, shall we say, is treated in the same way. They have a so-called consultation, and each one of them, as we've heard today with this one, is flawed, deeply flawed. There are moves from other parties to do something about this and try and unseat the Scottish Government, but That's going to take years. And I must say, the ISP in full tune with Salvos. They're the, as far as I know, the only party that is in full, agreement with Salvos. And consequently, we've formed a partnership in a way. But it has to be said that it's going to take quite a long time for that to happen. Probably more longer than we've got what will be left of the country by the time another party takes over from the SNP. The SNP has got over a barrel with the GRA, with all these other issues that we talked about. They say if you want independence, you've got to keep voting for us. And what that means, you've got to take everything else that goes with it. So that is a despicable position that they're in. So what you said, Pat, about chimes in with what other people are saying now, that we need to take to the streets. I'm sure that every Salvos member will, if you say have a trade union demonstrations in various places, I'm sure every Salvos member will join them. We will put the word out and we will back it completely, because I think we need another approach, a non-political one. Finally, I'll just say there is a precedence for this. In the 1980s, there was I'm sorry. In the 1980s, I just want to mention this precedence. It's not like we've invented something that's been done for the first time. There was a group called the Scotland UN Committee, which was formed, which started off with having no standing whatsoever, ended up a very influential player in the formation of the new Scottish Parliament. So it's been done before, and why? There's no reason why it can't be done again. Does anybody can tell me why it won't work this time? I'll consider what they say, but in my opinion, that's the way forward. And obviously, politicians have got to come into it at some point. Otherwise, people will be saying we're doing UBI by the back door. We don't want that. I'm actually, I'm really making a statement rather than a question, but it's just some things that I've picked up from what you guys have been saying. The idea of the common good is being totally ignored. But the common good is something that Salvos got running through the blood. Thanks for taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you.
I would actually like to ask, is that better? We've advertised this on Twitter, Facebook. We need to get more people along. Do the panel have any ideas how to encourage more people along to these public meetings?
To be honest, this is something that common rules kind of been studied for a while, and we're not as good actually as we'd like to be. We really admit that. But to be honest, meetings like this have hit their limit.
Right.
If you look around the world at the examples of popular progressive movements, they happen at the level of the peer-to-peer. They don't happen with bringing people into a hall to be lectured at,
Right.
especially with, no disrespect to my colleagues, 3 white men. So what you should be doing, talk to your friends, talk to your family.
Right.
Get them talking to their friends and their family. That's what works.
Right. That's clear.
Hi, is the sound okay for that?
Lovely.
Okay. I've got 2 questions. First, but first I just wanted to say that I did email my local councillor this morning, so very late. She said she would have been interested in coming, but it's too late, she was unable to do it. So when she does, she sent me a link to what sounds like an interesting Scottish Finance Committee meeting a while back, which I'll look at later and put into the third Salvo system. The first question I've had a quick skim through some of the stuff on both the UK government and the Scottish government websites about Freeport. First question is about a lot of statements about was it fair work first, practices. And my question about that is how does that relate to, are there any commitments to that, which is a pretty limited umbrella, relate to actual UK or Scotland or even EU employment law, and which as President, how much does employment law apply to the Freeport, established employment law? And the second thing is, what are the time limits for some of these tax and other concessions? From my reading so far, some of them do expire after a number of years, and there is supposedly a review process in there for it. But I'm wondering how much you think that might open up an opportunity for the future Scottish Government to challenge and change the course of these reports. Thank you.
As regards the question of tax, there are,
Sorry, can you speak up a little?
sorry, there are proposed limits. I mean, for example, domestic grief relief is eligible for businesses for 5 years. Likewise, the structures and buildings allowance is available every year for 10 years. So it's not going on perpetually. There are time limits in place. Quite how the actual tax thing is going to work, for example, for employers, national insurance, we don't know at this stage because that seems to be set in sand. So there's a few things we need to follow up and find out from the people. Because if you gloss over their official sites, there's not much in there that actually tells you anything much. So we've got to do a bit more deeper digging.
Yeah, so the Scottish Government Fair Work Principles, it essentially is a little addition to like procurement processes where if the Scottish Government wants to employ a company for services or goods, then it can, when it's put it into tender, if company A is signed up to the Fair Work Principles and company B hasn't, then company A gets more points, might win the tender. But they are kind of optional, as the Scottish Government itself says, that companies applying for Freeport status may give commitments on union recognition and real living wage. They don't have to. They can meet the UK minimums instead, which is to not do that. A bigger problem for me with these Freeports isn't so much the legislation on paper, though, it's regulation and enforcement. If these things are happening behind a razor wire fence and regulators don't have access to them, and either because the gate's locked up or just they're Freeports, we just let them do what they like, then those laws are not getting enforced even when they are. We see this with things like the P&O ferries, we see this with the offshore industry as well, where workers' rights are regularly eroded and wage competitions are regularly eroded because there's just no regulation of the laws that are in place. And I'd really hate to see that encroaching into these Freeports as well.
That's very much my impression from what the rest of the
Can I just say, in the innovation, new regulatory sandboxes, am I right in saying that they will experiment on pushing those regulations as far as they possibly can, and you can rest assured it'll not be for the benefit of the worker. It will not be for the benefit of the worker. The worker will pay the price in the standards and the welfare and the regulation and trade union law. And as for the response from Kate Forbes, that she is pleased that by making regeneration and creating high quality jobs the lead objective, £25,000 is there a highly paid job? Is there a highly technical job? £25,000 is close to the minimum wage. So, all these words in rhetoric, you can rest assured that when big bosses want to make their profit, it won't be highly paid jobs. It might be highly skilled jobs, but it's a damn race to the bottom.
Hi. I was just hoping
just wondered whether, you know, Scottish business groups could be, somebody could, you know, try and sort of go as a representative to try and discuss this with them. I mean, God, I mean, there was a business group down there where Prince Charles attended, and you know what I mean? I just feel that we ought to, not just Scottish businesses, but just inform people, as many people as we can. If that means getting out onto the streets and shopping centres and, you know, even, you know, just getting in a car and somebody with a, you know, going around the streets informing people, because I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't even a Salvos member until just a few months ago. So my knowledge was pretty limited, really. And I think it just takes, just informing, like Kate said, as many people as you possibly can, because I'm in Facebook and into my inbox and my Facebook account comes many, you know, projects and awareness of things that's going on in the world and to sign up. But really, we're kind of we're overwhelmed by all these. You need to get out to actually talk to people and let them know about our rights. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, that's very pertinent, because the situation will be that a business inside the zone gets all these packages of incentives, but a business just outside the zone pays its way. It's like the tax incentives for the mega rich. They pay 20% on their earnings. You and I pay up to 40%. You know, it's not rocket science. The business community really need to engage with us, because it's going to affect them worse. Just as we had out-of-town retail parks and our high streets died, that they can expect the same result, shall we say, should these come into practice.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. We need to get out and speak to people. I, like you, even as a member of Salvo, knew nothing much about Freeports until suddenly caught on the fact that lo and behold, there was a Freeport coming into effect on Inverness, and a new green fence went up around it. So, apart from looking, you've got one side of the fence where businesses can operate, virtually tax-free. The other side of the fence, you've got the industrial estate across the other side of the road, which is effectively operating under normal conditions, paying the business rates and all the rest of it. So, it's ludicrous. So, that was the question I asked when I said, where are we going next with this? And I think the public needs to know, and I think one of the best ways of getting the message out is A, through the unions, B, through establishing good working links with business communities within the area. Now, as I said, to begin with, that guy dipped a toe in the water with some local businesses in Inverness. And I won't elaborate too much, but I think we're building some fairly decent bridges with some of the business communities there. And basically, they are coming on site. So they can advise their own employees, their members within the business associations. And on the other flip side of the coin, the trade unions should be doing some serious heavy-duty work with the union members. So yeah, there's ways and means to get out of it. Either way, we need to let people know what's going on, because there is such an ignorance of people who just read the papers, watch the telly. There's been nothing coming out in any comment as to what's happening under their very noses. The people in Edinburgh, virtually the entire city, is going to be part of Freeport. So I'll pass you over to Craig.
Yeah, just to add that, I mean, it's not for lack of trying in the parts of a lot of the unions. The group, especially the STUC, have come out quite strongly against these reports and are campaigning on it. It just doesn't help when their submissions to consultations get rejected because they didn't answer the question the way the Scottish Government wanted to answer the question. So yeah, we are seeing a lot of teeth coming from the trade union movement. So if you're a member of the trade unions, keep engaged and keep that pressure on, because there is a potential for some movement there.
Sorry, before we go on for more questions, I've just been given a list of the current partners for the fourth report, which in the afternoon to kind of read out, let me know who's really behind this. Right, bear with me, I've got a pretty bad hand, so I might not be able to get the paper properly, but anyway, Arrowkip Innovation Campus, Babcock, Bryden, the Ropes Group, Callaghan, Catapult, cheers, Pat. City Regional Peel, Edinburgh, South East Scotland, Edinburgh Airport, Edinburgh, the City of Edinburgh Council, Edinburgh College, the University of Edinburgh, EMBU, Partners in UK, Offshore and Switch Partners UK Group, Falkirk Council, Fife Chambers of Commerce, Fife College, Fife Council, Forth Ports, Forth Valley Chamber of Commerce, Forth Valley College, that's it. Heriot Watt University, Invest Fife, Enios, I could forget that one. NMIS, National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland, Oceanina, Primal Pharmacy Solutions, why does that not surprise me? Queensberry One, Scarborough New Group, and the Scotland 5G Centre, and the University of Strathclyde.
Yeah.
So there you have it. These are those.
It's not even in Edinburgh.
No, no.
That's the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that if a company deems it necessary to operate or start a business outside of the zone, they have the right to do so. Am I right?
Yes, although they have to have a presence in the zone to get tax cuts, and that was another aspect of the LBTT consultation that I found very interesting. That where an office was warehouse was mixed use, so one side of the office is dealing with Freeport administration, the other side of the office is dealing with non-Freeport administration within the same company, then the company can apply for 50% cuts to the tax. To the taxes. We argued against that, saying no, you have to have your Freeport completely insulated from the domestic economy. That includes the car park for purposes of stamp duty. You do have to keep the Freeport stuff separate from the non-Freeport stuff. Again, the Scottish Government said no.
The reason why I'm meeting with the partners on there is because now you know all councils are involved in Freeports. Every council that's involved in Freeports has a member of the board, and the members of the board were invited to come to this meeting. And
There's a couple of questions here.
Briefly, before we move on to Freeport, the lack of elected representatives here, and the way that a number of us here were treated at Hollywood on Tuesday, and collect myself at St Andrew's House. I'm wondering whether, with every communication that we send to elected representatives, should have something on it that says that they are in position only by the will of the people of Scotland. The point I want to make in Freeport is I'm no expert in Freeport. It's not my field. Human rights is my field. So I wonder if the three gentlemen on the platform can send me their concerns on Freeports and can look at the human rights ramifications.
This lady
only a year less in experience since Hong Kong left the British time in Britain, and you can see the difference in what's happened in Hong Kong and that day. And it's like 25 years. It's like, well, 25 years ago we didn't have internet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what they say that they can do now, what they say that they can do now, it's the wage in the door. They'll do whatever they can do, and you can guarantee by the end of 25 years, what you see will be nothing like what we've got just now. Because at the end of the day, if a billionaire wants it to be done, at the end of the day, it's not going to be good for us at all. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that one.
Hello? Just put a question right near that way. Right. The point I wanted to make was that you've read it as partners there, and we've got all the councils involved, and we've also got the colleges and universities involved. Now, universities and colleges, students are in unions. The majority of local authority workers are also in unions. So can we not do something and hopefully mobilise these people to understand what's going on? Because I really feel that I can't get my head around how you can actually give away all this tax money from a country that is so dependent on the United Kingdom, because we give such a small tax revenue to the United Kingdom. How can they possibly afford to give us all this money for these people free, which is not going to come into our country at all? Basically, it's going to just sit in these reports. What's going to happen to the infrastructure within the country if we have this money just leaking out for however many years? Who's going to pay for that? Are we just not going to have even less doctors, or even less schools, or even less of everything? The roads are in a terrible state now. What's going to happen? So they're going to give all this money away. It just doesn't make sense. None of it adds up. None of it makes sense. It all adds it one way or another. And I really think we need to get more people mobilised behind it. And plug into the people that we've already got in some of these places that are standing up. Well, we're partners here. Well, let's just undermine them and take, got into the people.
I don't think there will be any argument for making this route. We have to engage with the public. We have to engage with the business community, and we have to instruct our union to get involved here. And it's a case here, a campaign, and if it means civil disobedience, then so be it. Because we get rid of the poll tax by civil disobedience, by being organised, by being able to react at the drop of a hat, and that's where we have to go with this.
I just had a quick look at the gross national income, so versus the gross national product. In 2021, there was £10.1 billion going out of the Scottish economy. £10.1 billion going out of the Scottish. Now, I don't really believe that figure, because if you look into the jails, that's a nonsense. I believe that figure is much higher. They're saying it's something like 10%, it's probably more like 30-40%. Now, if you bring these Freeports in, it's going to get worse. People will get poorer. That's us, everybody. Nobody's going to benefit. All the money will go to tax havens. Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned that paper on profit that we're going to be publishing soon on profit extraction, and it's based in large part on those figures that you just quoted there, the £10.1 billion that left Scotland in 2021. We also already published a paper unrelated to Freeport on things like the PFI schemes and similar schemes in Scotland where a lot of that money leaks into tax havens. Scotland has a huge amount of money leaking out of Scotland, often into tax havens or into shareholder profits. Can't tell you any more of the figures in the paper until it's published, but keep an eye out for it when it is.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Hold on a second.
Hi, it's Mike Hogger here. Very quickly, the extent of the Freeports, I heard that the Freeport was probably going to extend out to Kilkenny, and because of the finance of the Freeport, it's now made the viability of deep water port being dredged there viable. Any news on that particular thing? No. So that's news to you guys?
No, I'm thinking of the Highland people areas, the red zone extends beyond the current delineated area, so it's quite long.
Yeah, I believe that was quite a good source about that video, so then we'll follow up and then feed it through Salvos Communication, won't be enough.
Craig came up with a map the other night here that showed the existing boundary and it had extended by, I don't know how much, Craig, I forgot to download it.
I've got an app on my phone if you want to see it afterwards. Unfortunately,
It's
good
right
slides off to show you
way
that.
out, the initial boundary. I think it's going to this gentleman here.
I'll just agree with what Pat said there in some of the civilians.
Yeah.
A wee example of that, when you went to give Stirling the directive report to the Parliament, a flunky was sent out to take it. In my opinion, what should have happened was that somebody got a ticket for the gallery, stood up and said, "You're not accepting this, throw over and say it's now been delivered now, do something about it."
Yeah, good. I'm up for that.
Can I say if Just Stop Oil can get the publicity that they require to get their message out, then we have to do the same.
Hi. Have the Scottish Government actually cited any success stories amongst people? And I've been through some of the consultations, the land consultation, and then these things are a nightmare to work through. But they give an example of a success story.
Very scarce, very scarce, because as I say, I think it's where there are genuine supporters of this idea. It does come from that textbook economics idea of you cut taxes when growth happens and you get more revenue than you would have otherwise, which just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
the Laffer curve economics. I would think something on the left-hand side of the Laffer curve. So no, they don't cite the examples.
Yes. This is really a question for Craig. Although the chap from the left, sorry, you said that the business community were totally ignorant of Freeports. Now, Craig, you're very familiar with Business for Scotland and Kent. What's their line on this? Because you would have thought this would have been right up their street.
Just from an organisational perspective, I wouldn't presume to put words in their mouth. So just ask Gordon, he'll be happy to tell you. I can't speak to behalf of him, sorry.
Hello? Right. First of all, the Freeport thing is a sovereign Scot really annoying, right? Because it's a blatant land strip and asset strip. Now, you see what or not, because they're in partners with Westminster. Now, they've allowed Westminster into our land to rape it under their watch, which I find beyond the pale, to be perfectly honest. Now, where the Freeports start in the Fourth Estuary and where the Freeports end and how wide they are, it's basically everything that's worth anything in this area. Now, you can agree, disagree if you think frack is going to kick off. You're damn right it is, because you've got one gentleman who's in the company that owns the Grangemouth plant. He is on the board of Freeport. Now, I lived in Dunfermline for 41 years of my life before I moved to North Lanarkshire. And Fife is riddled with gold mines. as is Grangemouth, Falkirk,
As is the
Edinburgh, the Central Belt. So that's what's needed to get drummed into people. You know, people have worked hard, they're in a nice house, whatever the value of that house is, I'll guarantee will plummet if they've got a field behind them with a fracking rig in it. Now, this is what's needed to get pushed out, right? I get to understand a bit about the taxis, etc. But to me, a bricklayer fee, at least, that means absolutely nothing because it's going to not benefit me in a single penny. And it's not going to benefit anybody in this room or in anybody in the streets. Now, I agree that things have to be done, but I also agree that public meetings should be held as well, along with talking to people on the street. I was in Falkirk the March yesterday, and every single person I spoke to regarding Freeport had no idea about it. Not a single person. You can actually physically see their faces how angry they are. Now, you talk about the Inverness, look at Inverness as well. Now, in a certain area, I might be right, I might be wrong here, but that takes into consideration our renewables. It also takes into consideration the hydrogen plant that's getting built, is it not, in that Freeport area? So if you look at the two areas, then you ask the question, why is the two in the east and one none in the west? It's because everything of worth is getting taken away from us. I read an article by a guy who I'm pro-independence, 100%, right? But what we are allowing with Freeports is a similar argument what the UK government had with Brexit. Because if the Freeports happen today and we become independent next week, then we've got to argue to get our own land back. I'll let you get back to the meeting and get off my soapbox now because these things really, really annoy me.
Completely agree, panels will be put down in public meetings ever. And anyone who has walked out of here learning one thing the meeting has been unsuccessful for you, here's a wee challenge, bring a friend to the next one. Also, speak to your friends, get the information you take from these to them as well. That peer-to-peer interaction is far more convincing than anything I can tell them. What you tell them will convince them more readily than what I can tell them, so that is the power of peer-to-peer. And you're right, these Freeports will not benefit the majority of companies in Scotland who do not import and do not export. They will only benefit those chosen few who have that power. So, yeah, no, thanks for that.
Wealth grab, land grab, power grab.
Yes, period.
So, I think the meeting has been very interesting.
Hold on a second.
That's me.
Hold on a second.
Sorry,
hold your question.
You beat me to it there. I was going to say, following on from the gentleman there, he's absolutely hit the nail right in the head with what you've said. We need to get the real information out of it. Now, I sent a tweet out the other night, just a random tweet which I do occasionally, asking a very simple question: what do you know about Freeports? And the response I got back was absolutely astounding. This guy who sent me a massive thread back with very detailed, very enlightening information about the true extent of what the agenda is behind Freeport, and for that matter, stuff like charter cities and all the rest of the nonsense that are coming out of it. It's all been driven by Westminster now. If you're on Twitter, look this guy up and have a look at this stuff with much interest. He's spot on the nail. So he's called European Powell, and that's his Twitter handle is @European Powell. So look him up. I'll circulate this around and see what you think. I don't know if you got that in the handout you got coming in, but it's very, very good stuff. If the public knew with what's in there and what is in store for it, we're basically prisoners in our own country.
Can we have this question now?
Yes, sorry, Gavin, that was just a quick thing because I thought the gentleman's point was very good.
Right, so it's been really interesting, and I think we've all gotten caught up to the same level of what Freeports mean. I think also the conclusion seems to be that there's some sort of civil disobedience needed on this and on other topics in Scotland. I think it's worth for the panel and also for everybody in the room to consider what has gone wrong in terms of civil disobedience in the last couple of years. Where has Scotland, where have the unions, where have the people failed to make their point? Part of that consideration is probably looking around in this room. Yes, we are all very white. Yes, we are older. And there is a real issue here, and pretending like, oh, if we only can get the politicians in the room, is not going to resolve the fact that the way that we're campaigning, the way that civil disobedience is not properly understood and not properly applied, and the way that it isn't inclusive, not progressive and inventive in the way that we go about it, is a real issue. We can go and march on 17,000 issues over and over. It's going to have the same dampened and non-effective result. And that's despite the fact that civil disobedience and non-violent resistance is twice as likely to be a successful, socially transformative tool than violence. We all know there is no better option than civil disobedience, but it needs to be done properly. And one of the things that I would like to close on is that you don't overcome the authoritarianism that we have suffered in the last decade or so by looking for another leader.
No.
No. Lead yourselves. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Push the boundaries.
So, say these Freeports get implemented and there's nothing we can do for young people, what will it mean for them in, say, about 20 years?
Oh, 20 years time, my hope is that before that time the Freeports have been abolished again. Because they are instruments of political will, and nothing is fixed in stone forever. What can be made, what can be made can be unmade. So that's the political challenge for us, is to reverse this and start building a Scotland that does actually work for all of us, not just a few millionaires who want some more tax breaks.
I would say a few millionaires, it's billionaires these days. I would hope in 20 years' time, Freeport's are named after the ground. And that'll be because we've mobilised and we're taking the actions and we're no bit passengers in our own lifetime.
Yeah, I think, was it James at the back there? Yeah, sorry James. Yeah, unfortunately, young people need to take a grasp of this as well, because it's going to affect new generations and future generations to come. Us oldsters sitting at the top table here other day basically. And I think the baton really needs to pass over to you guys with your youth and social media skills and stuff like that. So, over to you, James. Thank you very much.
It's just with regard to, we're going to have a presentation, and I think it's very important to get that out onto social media, and everybody's linked up on social media. It's not just a case of retweeting and reposting, it's maybe copying and pasting and reattaching the images, getting it out there, and everybody working together as a team, because there's that 6 degrees of separation. You can talk to your pals and your neighbours about this, but if you use social media correctly, and you get the information out there on all social media, working as a team, everybody knows they people in the, we're all connected, get it out there, and get the presentation out there, the piece of paper that you're referring to, that's going to make a lot of interest for people who don't know that much about it.
Yeah. Just to reiterate, if you do search on YouTube for Creekdale and Freeport, you'll find a version of the presentation I gave today that's already up there with slides and some extra links, so I encourage you to watch that and spread it around.
What is that under?
If you search for Creekdale and Freeport on YouTube, you will find it. If you just search for Creekdale, you'll find a very talented DJ who is not me.
Question here in the middle of the room. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of websites, if you've not already done so, navigate yourself to salvo.scot, and there's a web page all about Freeports, which is again, very, very interesting people. So just more information for you. So thank you very much. Next question.
Just addressing your point, Craig, about you said at the start about capital flight, and that might be one of the fears of the Scottish Government. So for me, that's an opportunity for unions in Scotland to reach out to the unions in the rest of the UK and to really network on this, because all unions should be against this sort of neoliberal crap that they're coming out with now. One other thing is, where does the Green come in all this? What's the Green assurances? I noticed the Green Party are against it, in inverted commas, but it's not one of the red lines. They've got red lines in other policies, but not this.
Well, the unions in England will have a better idea of the negative impact in Freeport, because they've got them and they've not been a success. They are not being a success. They are draining the economy again. So the unions have to come on board. And I, as a union member, am instructing the unions to get on board. Come, join us, show us how to organise, show us how to be out there and get the message across, because they have the expertise. We have the expertise in probably grassroots movements, but we need to come together and make sure that the workers' rights are upheld at every aspect. And with this opportunity of creating sandboxes, whatever that bloody means, that gives them power to change whatever they wish. And it will be a race to the bottom. So we call on the union, I'm calling on the unions on behalf of Salvos to come on board with their expertise, and let's get this done.
Just to self-promote again, a lot of this is covered in our books, Sorting a Handbook for a Better Scotland. It shows you how we can not just start chasing and competing country to country or city to city for scraps of GDP growth, but to reform the economy into one that puts all of us first. So if you want to see more about how that all fits into the thing, come up after the end and I'll show you through the book.
Just a very quick response to James, and history involved as well. You know, Thatcher years, clearances are cyclical. There was a clearance right after the Thatcher years. Many of my friends live in Australia and America and all over the place now because of Thatcher pulling the rug out from under their feet. If we let these free ports happen, James, your friends are gone. They're going to leave. There's another Queen's coming. That's the bottom line of this for the next generation. And get that message to them and tell them that, and they might get on board.
Just another wee quick one before we can actually do basically what we talked last night and we're going to do. It's like there are almost 7,000 members of Salvos. There are 126 MSPs. Each member of Salvos has 5 MSPs. They've got your local one and they've got 4 regional ones. It is the all surgeries. 8. It's 8. One constituency. One constituency. 7. Right, okay. I got right first, but that's what I put last night. Anyway, the bottom line is, we've all got access to all these different MSPs. The other surgeries. What we should be doing is organising one Friday when most of them are part of the Highlands and Islands, some of them also themselves up there. But a Friday afternoon, we should get mob minded, go around and block their bloody surgeries and don't let them get home until they're doctors. Yeah. That's it.
Bear in mind that if you write to your MSP and a constituent, they have an obligation to respond to you. So again, that kind of right if they visit and put their surgeries, that's all part of politics. I don't even need to go to that level yet. But just turning up at constituency surgeries. Everyone on the same day asking the same question across the country.
You can also tag them on Twitter. They may not answer, but it does actually highlight it.
Can I just bring a wee bit of order back? We're almost finished, are we?
Yes.
That's a great idea, Dave. But we need other ideas. So if anybody out in the meeting today has an idea, please send it to the core team, and the core team can possibly disseminate it between the hubs. This is the start point, as it were, to put action in place. So it's a great idea.
Sorry, can I just mention something? Very often people get referred to websites and look at my YouTube and all this. Don't expect people to do that. Actually, do it for them. Make a little, people like, do stuff on TikTok like James, make a little something, go to the effort, find your video, send people the links. Don't expect people to go to that, because that's why you get the apathy, because they can't do it. They're feeling that low that they can't do it. You actually have to collect the information and give it to them. That's just my opinion.
Hello, I just wanted to ask about in Teesside that a lot of pollution with dredging and environmental issues. And my valley, I come from that north, but actually stay in Falkirk, is the damage, the potential damage to the seas round about and the dredging, these kind of ports and everything. Who's overseeing that?
In the Highlands, a bit back beyond the Freeport, the Nig port was subject to proposals to have oil transfer at sea. Now, we fought a considerably good campaign to stop that, and we stopped it in its tracks. So people now power does work. But you're right, within the Freeport areas, we're looking at devastation of the environment again, because there are no regulations. So pollution, yeah, it's going to happen.
Have we got any other questions or
One last question here at the back.
Thanks everybody for putting up with me again. I'll try and make it quick. This is a question. I want to ask Pat if there's any danger of the unions in England, for example, they're a lot, most of them are pro-UK, for understandable reasons. Is there any danger that there'll be conflicts of interest with the asking the unions to get in Salvos Public involved with us on this issue against the fact that we don't want to look for independence?
Well, I personally don't know if they will react in that way. I don't think they should, because this is not about independence. This is about workers and workers' rights. What we've gained so far over the century that there's been organised unions, that's at risk here. So, as a paying member of a union, I expect them to do everything in their power to protect my rights, and my ancestors have fought hard-won rights. These are they're looking on a daily basis right now by our government, never mind multinational companies. Our government is diluting them, and we should be mobilising to stop that. So, on that basis, I expect the unions to come on board.
I think we've got so we've got time for today. Can I ask you first to show your appreciation for the live? And thanks very much to Craig, Pat and Graham for the brilliant job. the details near the time when we get the date organised to get it up with us. That's all for me. Thanks very much. Bye.